Neil, thank you very much for being here.
Thank
This
you.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Neil just performed a amazing clinic workshop here at Island Music, and he was awesome,
Well,
really awesome,
I did my best.
and that was amazing. I even got the opportunity to jam with Neil, which was really, really cool. Neil's been an instructor for me, a musical mentor, and also a great friend. So it was really a cool opportunity.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Thank you. You played great.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm telling you the truth. You played really, really great.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. We had at one point in time filmed a podcast remote, and it didn't quite work out. So here we are in person, and we just have some kind of questions and insight that we like to get from artists and our friends to kind of help inspire our fan base and just kind of dive deep into guitardom. So,
Yeah, of
uh,
course.
our first question I always ask is what are you currently working on? What are your musical goals and what are you doing these days?
Good question. And you ask at an interesting time because I just did my One Dark Night show in Cleveland, Ohio, and which is a big Halloween orchestral extravaganza multimedia production. So now that that's over, I think the first thing is I'm gonna retool the show a little bit, bring some new tunes in, write some more tunes for it,
Okay.
and kind of give an extra 20% of what we didn't do this past year.
And this would be in preparation for
In preparation for
2024's. Okay.
And it's so funny because for me, like the week we did the show on a Friday, by Sunday I'm already up in the studio working on
Wow.
new stuff. I
Okay.
like while the skillet's hot, you have
Sure.
to strike, right?
Sure.
So I know I'll do that, and then not that the world needs any more Neil music, but I feel like it's time to write again.
Okay.
It's time to. So I think I'll sequester, after the holidays and kind of like just start getting some ideas together and,
Okay.
because I think artistic expression is about what you need as an artist versus, monetary or something like
Sure.
that. So
Sure.
like I feel like, okay, I did Vermeer about 2-3 years ago now. I think I have something to say again. So we'll see, but I think 24 will be a year of new music for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So your writing comes in waves then. So you'll go through kind of a performance spell
Right.
or performance period. And then after that, and maybe after playing those songs out in front of people and kind of getting the vibe,
Right.
you'll be inspired again to create, and then you'll go to that cycle kind of
Right,
thing.
and you nailed it perfectly. It's always in cycles because so early last year, I started writing some music, and I thought to myself, "Wow, I have 4, 5, 6 songs already.
Okay.
I could release an EP. So let me button these up and really make sure these are the best tunes and everything like that. And then of course, One Dark Night preparation and rehearsals hit. So it really is about like you said, like a
Coming
wave.
into that cycle. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And like a lot of people, they'll write every day or they'll write all the time. I write when I have something to say or
Okay.
when I need to put out a new record or something like that. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And all of your recording these days is done in your home studio. You're quite the engineer, I know, and very tech savvy. So everything you do is just in a home studio?
Yeah. I will record drums at a bigger studio, or like the last project I did, I had Todd Zuckerman from Styx,
Okay.
amazing drummer. He did the drums at his house, or if I do drums, I'll go to a real studio. But I can do everything else at my place. I have all the preamps and all the plugins and all the software and stuff. So
And the know-how.
and the know-how.
Yeah, okay.
And because we tracked some stuff for you.
We did, yes. And you were like a studio whiz, which was awesome. And I think we talked about this before, is being proficient at using technology and studio gear is just like learning an instrument. I mean, you really have to put in the time and continually practice and stay with it.
Right.
It's not like you go in and press record and instantly you have a masterpiece. Like it takes time and energy and trial and error, really.
And you want to get to the point, whether it's an instrument or like what you're talking about, technicalities and stuff, you want to make it so that you know it so well that you can forget it. So like when I'm recording, I'm I'm like on autopilot doing the editing and the recording, and
Sure.
I know exactly where
Just
to
comes
go.
second nature. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not even pinging my. I think it's left brain side is the analytical side. I can stay in a creative mode, but yet I can get it done. So it is really about like learning that discipline and
Yeah.
making all the mistakes and being so frustrated. And
Yep.
like even last night, you're like, how many years did it take?
Yeah.
How many times did things mess up for you to learn?
Yeah,
But that's
that
how
you're
you learn,
like,
right?
okay, I figured this out and I feel comfortable with it. And confidence too is such a big thing.
Yeah.
Like the more you do it and stuff goes right, or you fix your own problems, you're like,
Yeah.
like I got this, I can do this. So,
But it is freedom though. If I could just end with,
well, yeah, because you can
it's
just wake up and like, hey, I have this melody in my mind. Let me go lay down this track, and then I can build upon it from
Right.
there. That's really cool to be able to do. Not get in the
Exactly.
car, book studio time, drive there.
yeah,
like-
because back in the old days, you'd have to. It was an expensive endeavor, right?
Sure.
And it was like the gatekeeper of the studios or the record labels. And now we could record in our underwear at midnight.
Yeah,
and,
right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think the creative process is greater because we're on our own schedule, on our own
Sure.
rhythm of things. So
and you play when you record when you feel inspired. And you're
right,
feeling it.
exactly,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
So tell me a little bit about your guitar practice routine these days, and if you have one.
That's a really good question. We were just talking about cycles, right? So for me, I don't practice every day. I practice when I need to, but I'm playing basically every day. So do I always have the guitar in my hand? Yes. Am I legitimately practicing or trying to further the technique? No. So it could be a months that where I'm just writing or recording. But then if I have a tour coming up, which I will, I'm going to be in Europe for 4 or 5 weeks coming in April in 24. Then I'll sit and I'll practice, like legitimately get the technique back or whatever.
Okay.
So it just depends. But the short answer to your question is I'm always with the guitar, but I don't know if it would be considered practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have like certain goals that you're like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna learn this piece, or I'm gonna get my alternate picking up to this metronome speed, or I'm going to spend time to where I can run all the modes throughout the fingerboard. Do you have musical practice goals like that, or you're just like, hey, you know what? Here's my set of songs that I'm going to use for this tour.
Right.
Let me just relearn those, make sure that the parts that are hits or stand out, or
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean.
right.
Like you have all that.
Probably the latter, and
Okay.
I would say, but like for me, it's listen, I have a long way to go to be the ultimate player that I would have in my mind's eye. But for me, what triggers me the most is like the vibrato. Is it articulated correctly, or is it is the bending, the stretching? Is it in tune?
Right.
Is there a continuity to the playing? Does it sound like me? Does it? So I don't think at this point I'm concerned about the technicality of it. Again, not saying that I can't improve tenfold, but for the time I have left on this earth, I think I'd rather work on things that identify what I sound like, and so it probably wouldn't be running through modes or something like
Sure.
something
okay.
like that.
Yeah. No,
Does
that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think you get to a certain point in your guitar playing career where you've kind of put in that time and passed that time period, and now you're working more towards the song or the goal or the performance kind of thing, rather than
Exactly.
the Steve Vai 10-hour workout kind of thing. I think it happens to everybody, really.
No, and it's interesting because when I get that question when I'm on the road, like, hey, do you practice while you're on the road? And it's always humorous to me because we drive 6 hours. We get up, we have breakfast, we drive 6 hours, we get to we sound check. Now we go back to the hotel, we shower, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Eat dinner, come back to the show, go in the dressing room. I get 15 minutes to warm up, maybe, do the show, load, get back to the hotel. So it's really, it's that level of practice doesn't really exist at a certain point in your career, because you're out touring and doing what you want to do, or you're writing, or you're recording, or so. I certainly would think that intensity of raw practice.
Yeah, it's like for when you're younger. Or
Yeah,
something,
I
you
would
have
say
less
that,
going
but
on, you
not
know?
necessarily. But then you see someone great like Guthrie Govan, or
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
all these newer guys coming up. I mean, it's unbelievable. So it's you have to let it go at a certain point,
Yeah, for sure.
and identify what you sound like.
So, who are you listening to these days?
The crazy answer is no one.
I actually hear that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because so when I'm working on music day in day out, and if I'm writing or recording, I don't want to listen to music because I've just listened to music for 8 hours,
Sure.
right?
That's
So
how
it's
I
a
feel.
fatiguing
Yeah,
thing.
here, yeah.
But then also, I don't want to be, I don't want it to leak into me via osmosis, and then I'm regurgitating something I heard that's in my memory
Right,
bank,
right.
and so it's just it's a lot of talk radio or news
Okay.
radio
Yeah,
or
sure,
satellite
sure. I do
radio
the
like
same
that.
thing. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you're just fatigued from music, from the sound of the guitar, whatever,
Yeah.
and you drive home and listen to talk radio, or you listen to a podcast or whatever, because you don't want to burn off that guitar energy that you have listening to something else, kind of thing. I
And
get that.
I can listen to, like, so I have Sirius XM when I'm at the gym or driving. So yeah, well, I put on Hair Nation or classic vinyl or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't trigger me. It turns into background music really
Sure.
fast, and it's just like an old friend back there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's not like, so if I listen to the new Dream Theater record, I would really be listening to it, right?
Right.
Okay, what is that?
And
What's that
studying
riff?
it,
What's
like,
that riff?
yeah, sure.
And all of a sudden now it's in my consciousness, and now it's gonna leak through into, and now like, boy, that riff sounds just like
Right, right.
and so it's just easier to just not to listen to anything. It's crazy. We get into it because we love music.
No,
and
I get it, but you also don't want to wear it out for yourself.
Right,
and,
exactly.
You are a humongous gearhead, like most
Yeah.
of our fan base here. I mean, we constantly talk about guitars, amps,
Yes.
pedals, tones. Tell me a little bit about your gear collection, what you're currently using, and kind of what you look for in an instrument.
Yeah. So guitars, I have a ton of my Kiesel
Yeah.
NZ Aries, which I think they're great guitars, fantastic. I just got a John Hill. John Hill's a guy out of Cleveland,
Okay.
guitar maker, and he made me just a stunning Flying V, gold Flying V.
Yeah, we hope you
Sparklet.
get the pickups for
And
that.
I got the
Yep,
pickups through
yep,
you,
yep,
right? I
yep.
bought them through you.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, not only we're friends, but I just buy my gear through you.
Yeah,
now.
I mean,
So
you got
it's-
yourself a personal gear shopper. Yeah.
You're my concierge, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So guitars, to me, as we found out for this clinic we just did, because to fill it all in, I left my Flying V at home. I was going to use it. I said, hey, can I come in and just I pick up something off the wall? But as we found out, I'm sort of a picky SOB about this stuff, right? Like, it has to be 24 frets, right? It has to. I don't like finished necks.
Yep.
So that I tried a few beautiful guitars, and I'm like, man, the neck sticks. I
Yeah.
can't. Oh, it's killing me. Keith, do we have anything with an unfinished neck? You're like, oh my God, Neil, what are you doing? So,
Well-
but it's that sort of vibe, right?
Yeah.
That. So to me, I love an unfinished neck. It feels more organic. You don't stick to it. It feels earthy. It feels, and I always sandpaper my whatever neck I get. I sandpaper
As
off
do
the,
I, yep.
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 And I don't use the fine 220 sandpaper. It's the
I use the roughest
it's
stuff
the
you can get.
60. I want
Yep.
60,
Yep.
and then it feels rough, and then you sweat on it, and
Yeah.
so it's little stuff like that. And what's important to me is I switch my pickups a lot.
You do,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
That's
I
really
hear it.
part of your kind of signature tone is you're constantly switching back and forth between
Right.
your pickups, which is actually really a cool use of
Yeah,
the
because
guitar,
it's
right?
really the pickups are very underestimated in terms of like
Yeah.
the tone. So some phrases need the biting bridge pickup, and some need that the warm woman tone of the neck. And so over the course of the years, it's always been I just flick the switch and I go. So uh, all the placement has to be really good for me too.
Right.
So again, you want to remove the instrument from the equation when you're playing. So you're just thinking musically, or you're thinking you're listening to your own playing. So you're not thinking, okay, this, and you're maneuvering around it. You want to take that all out of the equation. But
Yeah. Okay.
so so that's guitars. Uh, I've been a big modeler guy now because
Yeah.
with these fly gigs, if I fly to Europe or Asia, and you ask for a back line, if you ask for something like even simple like JCM 900, JCM 2000, JCM 800, whatever, it's never right. It's always broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, so
Yeah.
um, I started using the fractal stuff long ago. I have a quad cortex. I think it's fantastic. Like it's been a lifesaver for me in terms of, like, so we did One Dark Night. I had my XFX3s in a rack. It's great. I have the big controller, but for today's clinic, I use an FM3,
Yeah.
which is the little baby one.
Yeah.
Sounds the same. So it really makes things so much easier. And then as far as gear goes, I'm a big advocate for in-ear monitors, right?
Yeah.
So out of the modeler, we go to the house, one side, another side goes into, bring a little mixer with my in-ear stuff, and now I can hear everything perfectly. I don't have to depend on a monitor man or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So
And it's also so much easier to control, really. I think we talked about that earlier too. Is a stage volume amp. It's hard to control feedback, signal to noise threshold, even tone. I mean,
yeah.
it's tough. So I think with a modeler like a Fractal or a Line 6 or anything Head Rush, anything like that, it's always the same tone. It's reliable. You can go anywhere, and just all you need is an XLR cable from the board,
Absolutely.
and you're good to go. And same thing with
Absolutely.
in-ear monitors. I mean, how many times have you played and had a bad monitor mix or not had enough of the drums in your
Right.
monitor, so you lose where you are? I mean, to be able to control that stuff on stage makes it so much easier because now you just have to worry about playing, doing your job.
Right.
Right.
That's exactly right. And even like, so for instance, for our clinic that we did a little bit ago, I always bring my in-ear system because now normally you would think no one could possibly screw up. No monitor situation you could screw up stereo tracks and one mono line of guitar, right?
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how many times I'll get to a thing, sound check sounds great. Now just leave it. Don't touch it, right?
Yeah.
It's perfect. Oh yeah, no problem. Walk on stage, monitors blaring So, but today Jake did me well. He did a great job. In fact, I took my inner monitors out and played off the. I did. I played off the monitor in the house because. Good job, man. So yeah, inner monitors. Once you get used to them, and I know, I always get after the show, like people, and I understand it. People romanticize using amps, right?
Sure, yeah.
Man, I'd love to hear you play through a plexi with a 412.
Oh, dude, even the look of it, like behind
I would
you,
love to too.
Yeah,
I love it. It sounds great, and I always talk. It's like your leg gets hit with the percussiveness of that sound, and no one wants that more than me. But when you're traveling and you have 15 minutes of sound check, and you got to, the last thing I talked about.
Yeah.
You got to roll.
Yeah.
So it's a necessity these days. There's no way around it.
And you're used to using super heavy strings, right? Like 11s? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I keep referring back to the clinic I just did a little bit ago, but it was really a learning experience for me because I don't know, whatever the guitar I used, it might have had nines on it, right?
Yeah.
Like it was freaking me out. Like I'm used to like, I play pretty hard. Like I hit the string, and so like I was hitting the string and it's
They're
giving,
like giving. They're
it's
flying
giving,
all
or
over
like
the place.
I would
Yeah.
overstretch the string because I'm used to really getting on that. And so I sent my buddy a text message. I said, man, I am really picky. Like I never realized how idiosyncratic I was, but we learn, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's these little things that you don't
Yeah.
think about. The tension of an 11 gauge string versus a 9 gauge string is drastically different,
Yeah,
right? So if
exactly.
you're pressing hard and you're used to digging in and fretting the guitar hard, you're going to bend the nines like crazy out of tune. Yeah,
Or the
right?
vibrato's
Yeah.
really
yeah, it's
wild.
like flying all over
Yeah.
the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a big difference. And then you showed me last night some super heavy picks that you use. Did you use those picks on those 9 gauge strings?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
again, like the poor strings. Like at
Yeah.
the end, the guitar was going out of tune because I think the string just gave up. You
Yeah,
know, it was
yeah,
like
it's like
I'm
you
done.
win. Yeah,
I'm
you
done. I
win.
just beat the hell out of it. You
It's
know,
like a point or what is it? A 3.
it was a 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So.
So,
that's,
but listen, all of it goes into the service of the song,
Sure.
right? And so, you know, we as musicians, we're always interested in, you know, when we set up, there's always the fans that come, hey, what are you using? What's the?
Yeah.
They're looking for the mojo,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, is that maybe if I use
What's
that
the
out?
trick?
What's the
Yeah,
trick?
yeah.
What's the secret?
Yeah.
But the secret is there is no secret.
Yeah. It's in your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's
I mean,
the
it's in your
tone right
hands,
here.
Yeah. It's
Exactly.
totally in your hands, and sometimes it comes from things that you wouldn't necessarily look at and gravitate towards. At my house last night, Neil picked up a Nash conversion Les Paul that I have, gold top. It's a
That'll
beautiful
be mine
guitar.
one day. That will be mine one
And
day.
I mean, he was just all about it. And I have a lot of cool guitars that fall right in Neil's wheelhouse. I even have one of Neil's old guitars, and he kept going back to this Les Paul.
So good.
And it doesn't really, like that guitar, looking at it, you would not think, oh, that's going to be an instrument for Neil.
Right.
But it just had the mojo and it had the
it's,
feel kind of thing. So
But it really is about the connection with the instrument and the player.
Sure.
So I know everyone is always about the specs of the guitar. It has this pickup and this.
oh yeah,
you know,
this nut width or all that kind of thing.
whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like with that Nash Les Paul, I put my hand on it.
And you're just like, oh, this works.
Done.
Yeah.
It's mine, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
so. It is about that connection. There is a romantic thing about a person and their instrument.
Sure.
Like you've got to connect. You've
Sure.
got to.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
so-
it's a form of expression for you, right? So if you don't connect with it, like.
and you want to forget your playing. You do.
Yeah,
You want to
that's a
forget
good
about
point,
all the
too.
gear. You want to forget about the guitar. You want to forget about the pick. You
Yeah,
want
just let
like
the music come out of you.
You
Yeah.
just now we're just expressing, and I know it sounds all esoteric and new agey, but you know, like these are all tools, and we want to play music. You know.
So do you have a desert island guitar? If you had one guitar that you had to take with you to a desert island?
I would say probably two.
Well,
And-
no.
Two. I got to bring two
All right,
because
all
I have a double case.
Okay, all right,
So,
all right. So you
right,
can fit them in. Okay, all right.
My 1993, as you
Yeah.
dated it for me,
Yep.
the EVH Music
Okay.
Band, the red stop tail.
Okay.
That thing is Desert Island. There's
And you've had that forever.
forever.
Okay.
I got it in Scotland when I was on tour.
Wow.
And I had my Spider-Man Hamer at the time, and I was doing a clinic, and it was on the wall. I'm like, oh, I love those things. The broomstick, I call it a broomstick
Yeah.
neck, and I played it, and it's expensive. I put it back up, and I was back at the hotel that night. I'm like, it was like a jackhammer in my head. Like,
Over and
you
over
need
and
that
over
guitar,
again.
you need
Yeah.
that guitar. So I went back the next day, and I said, I will A/B these two guitars, and if this sounds better than the Hamer, I got to get it. And it blew it away, and the sales rep was nice. He advanced me the money. And,
Oh, that's cool.
and the other desert island is the Nash custom telly.
Okay.
The black telly. That thing is an anointed guitar, man. That is.
Okay.
It just sounds so good.
And you use that for like a lot of your cleaner stuff.
Cleaner
and-
stuff for
and
recording.
mild overdrive
I'll
and
do
stuff.
tellies recording with distortion, the most articulate
Okay.
guitars. They cut through really clean. Yes, and Nash is that
Okay.
guy. That guy really can.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah, he knows
it's
what
funny.
he's doing.
So, yep.
So not only are you a guitar enthusiast, but you are also a synth enthusiast. I think you've even gotten a couple synths from us, and
Yeah.
you're constantly weaving synth sounds into your records as your career progresses. Tell me about your love of the synth.
Good question. To me, like a synthesizer is just magical, right? So I know the sound I'm gonna get if I plug a guitar into an amp, or if it's a clean amp or dirty. Like it is what it is, and that's special in and of itself. But when you start experimenting on a synthesizer, and it blossoms into something magical. Or let's say, so my last record, Vermeer, was pretty synth heavy, but not synth heavy in place of guitar, but it's weaved in and out of the guitar.
Yeah.
You know, it's an underlayment, or it's the magic sprinkles on top or something like that. And it's just, to me, it's just magic. It's you put the right sound on some stuff, or when you're writing, and then all of a sudden it just opens another world. And I was growing up, I was a huge, still am, enormous Cars fan. So like the first Cars record was just genius synthesizer stuff.
Okay.
Where you're not, it's not a synth record, but the synth is in service of the song, and the lines and the sounds, and it's again, I keep using the word genius, but yeah, I love synthesizers.
Okay.
They're inspiring to me. I love the old analog ones, and it's magic. That's all I can say.
Yeah. It's another tool. Like
it's another tool.
Inspirational, creative tool. That's cool. Okay. Tell me about some other hobbies and interests that you have outside of music. Like, what else is in your world other than guitar playing?
I like to cycle. I like to bike.
Okay.
So this year I did not. I was an abysmal failure with riding. I was an abysmal failure. But every other year I'll get 5,000 miles in over the course of the summer. So it's good therapy in terms of mentally.
Sure.
You know, you're out for 2 hours, 2-3 hours sometimes.
Yeah. In the sun.
In the sun, and
working up a sweat.
You're working out things in your head.
Yeah.
And there's always an arc to the ride. Like maybe you're angry, or I'm all frustrated, and then I ruminate on that, and then an hour in, all of a sudden it all seems okay. And it's more therapeutic mentally than physically. But I love riding. It's a big thing for me. So I'll get back on it this year. It's abysmal failure this year. But,
that happens.
Yeah, they say once you find something to do that you love, you never work a day in your life, right?
Yeah.
So I know we've talked about this personally. Like, I just love to work.
Yeah.
So like I don't differentiate between personal time and working.
Work time. Yeah.
Like,
that's just all part of the day.
it's all part of the day,
Where you are
or
at
like.
that point in time.
And I know we were laughing about it this morning. Like, hey, why don't we go on vacation, and you could just unplug and unwind.
Why?
Now I'm stressed.
Yeah.
Because now I'm thinking about what I want to do. I want this new music I want to do. I have a new idea. I want to, like, working is calming for me.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and it helps you, like, feel like you're moving ahead in life, kind of thing.
Right.
Going back to Van Halen, I know we are both humongous Van Halen fans, and that kind of, for me, is what started it all. Tell me a little bit about the impact of Eddie on your playing, and how it inspired you and how it helped build your career.
Yeah. Listen, I wouldn't be here today, sitting here talking to you. We wouldn't be friends if Eddie Van Halen did not exist. Right. The generation before us, you could say it was a Beatles thing. They saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and changed their life, and everyone wanted to grow their hair and play tunes. And the story I always tell is I was in the back seat of with my buddy, and his older brother was driving with his friend, and we were hot boxed in there because they were smoking, and he put in the 8-track of Van Halen 1, and
Yeah.
and it was blistering loud, and I always say it when on that first chord.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
It was, my life was changed.
It's so magical and just, I mean, think of that sound in that record still holds up today, all these years later, right? Like it's still, when you put it on, it sounds fresh and new. It doesn't sound dated. It doesn't sound,
absolutely.
You know, and
yeah, he changed it all for me and a generation of guitar players.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I can't say I don't believe I sound like him. I mean, he had his own thing, and but just, and he changed the musical landscape. The band changed the musical landscape, but even down to custom guitars, replacing pickups,
sure,
modifications on your guitar,
sure,
graphics on your guitar. He changed everything. Technique.
I mean, just technique.
Yeah, I know Billy Gibbons. There was a stretch, and Billy Gibbons used his finger and played a note, and
nothing.
Whatever.
Like, it's nothing.
When we heard Eruption, you're like, "Is that a keyboard? What the hell is that?
What is it? It's like alien."
What?
Like when I mean, when you hear how aggressive it is too, and just the tone and the texture and the attack of it. And we talked about this before. Eddie's playing has a swing to it. While other people can duplicate the licks, like put your hand here kind of thing. It's really
But some people
hard.
can't duplicate it.
Right, yeah. But it's really hard to get that feel and that vibe from it. It's just not something that everybody can do. And I'm not saying that I can do it perfectly.
I'm not saying I can do it.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, yes, I can put my fingers here, and I know these notes, and they go in this sequence, but it doesn't always, still comes out sounding like me, and you can't get to that level. Yeah.
And he has, for me, you know, as we get older, maybe things aren't as special as they used to be, right? Like when you're a kid in the playground, the slide is enormous, right?
Sure.
But then you go back to the playground, and you're like, oh, it's 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
It wasn't that big.
Yeah.
But when I listened to those first records up through Fair Warning, before the tone changed, it was a different Eddie from '84 on.
Yeah.
It's groundbreaking. It's sheer male adolescence testosterone.
Yeah.
Like it. I feel like 16 when I hear it again. Like, oh my God! Like there's aggression, and there's power, and there's like the hair on the guitar. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you spent the summer touring with the Nelson brothers.
Right.
That's awesome. Just one day you text me like, hey, I'm not going to be around this week. I'm going out on tour with the Nelson guys. I'm playing guitar for them. You know, tell me about that.
The dudes are great, man. Matthew and Gunnar are just like, they're real deal, right?
Yeah.
So I say this out of love, like maybe back in the day, because they were good-looking guys and they looked like hot Swedish chicks, right? Maybe, well, first of all, they had some number one songs.
Their songwriting was
great.
really, really good, and the songs were memorable, and you could hum back the melody line and the hook and everything. So they're great songwriters. No doubt about it.
And to this day, they can still sing the paint off of walls. Like it's amazing.
With their craft,
They're serious about their craft. They can sing. They play multiple instruments. They're inspirational. They're fantastic. And so we did a bunch of shows. We did shows with Winger, Warrant, Lita Ford, Great White, Pop Evil, Sebastian Bach. We did,
wow.
Like it was some great shows at Firehouse. Some great festival stuff. And so I know that we're going to do some more stuff this upcoming year.
Okay.
And they're a real deal. I got to tell you though, like if you think you know what they're about, I don't know if you know what it's about. You got to see them. You got to see them live, and all of a sudden you're like, man, these guys can sing like no one's business.
Well, that's really cool that you're able to just step into a gig like that? Was it stressful for you to learn the tunes and like
No,
duplicate the solos
I
and
played
stuff?
with them maybe 10, 15 years ago. Maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it was a good run. And then they kind of put Nelson to bed and did Ricky Nelson Remembered and some other stuff they were doing. They have a cool new band called Firstborn Sons, which is all original. It's really great. But I think they're interested in kind of just reviving Nelson a little bit now,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
because it's fresh. So
Sure.
it's so funny. You would always think Nelson would attract like all the hot girls back in the day, right? But at the shows, there's like dudes with like tattoos and Nelson shirts, and they know all the. So it's
Well, I
really
mean,
it's
it was
crazy. It's great,
the background music for a generation and a lot of
right?
important times in people's lives and stuff. And man, the guitar hooks were so cool
Brett
and
Garson.
memorable.
Brett Garson was with the original guitar player. It was insane, and the beautiful thing is it shows a song is everlasting.
Sure.
So a good song is everlasting. So these songs that were good back in the day, they still sound fresh and good, and people still remember them because they were great songs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and they give me a lot of room too. So I do I'm All Right every night.
That's
so
cool.
like I'm doing one of my tunes in the set, and it's like my solo spot, and then they're real historians with stuff. So like this one tune starts in C minor, and I do a Michael Schenker quote of Doctor Doctor, and then I do the little live solo that he did on Strangers in the Night, and they just laugh all the time. They love it, so they're very
That's
do your
cool.
thing, man, step out. We want you to be you. So they're the greatest.
Yeah,
really.
that's really cool. Tell me about writing I'm All Right. I'm All Right is it's a masterpiece in
Cool.
instrumental songwriting. I mean, the melody, the movement of the piece. It's got flash and technique in there, but that's not the focus. You can
Right.
walk away and hum it. I know I spent an entire summer trying to master that
you
tune.
got it though.
Yeah, I mean
You
it was coming along, but tell me about writing that. What was kind of going through your mind? How did you build that piece?
When I guess it's typical of maybe a lot of people have that. I had no idea what it was going to become. Right, I didn't know it was going to be my signature song. I had the chords E, B, C sharp minor, and I tried all these permeations of like what could you do, shredding over this melody, and I had the song, but I didn't know what I was going to put over it, right? Because I viewed it as a vocal tune. It's
Really?
if,
Okay.
if you take the arpeggiation stuff off it's just a vocal E major tune. So then I just by sheer coincidence I did the interval thing.
Yeah.
Whoa, what's that? And all of a sudden, that's when it was really born. So I could have easily failed on that too, because some of the stuff I was trying to make work, it didn't work, So
Okay.
I kind of stumbled onto it. And even when we did it in the studio on Sing, I didn't think it was going to be anything. Like, I don't know, And then all of a sudden, it just, I would travel overseas, and everyone knows that song, and they want to hear
Yeah.
that song, and then kids start playing the song, and then on YouTube, Asian kids start playing the song, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, now we have a thing. So it's a song I could never not play when I play it. But
Okay.
I'm really anxious. I'm not anxious. I'm really appreciative of
Yeah.
that I have that song. Yeah.
And it's changed a lot
Yeah.
over the years, right?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, I've heard you play it quite a few times throughout your career, and it seems like you are constantly modernizing it or coming up with new excitement to it,
Yeah,
Like
because
it's-
if I'm just being honest, I think the original version on Sing, is a little lame. It's a little.
What? I wouldn't say
I
that.
don't know. It's a little flaccid, if I could use that term. Like it's just like it just sits there. It's like even some of the I don't know. I'm not a fan of the original version.
Okay.
So I always when I do a live record or a live DVD, I always get a chance to kind of up it a little bit.
Okay.
I don't change the song. But some of the guitar parts get. So if you listen to the Sing version, it's pretty tame. It's pretty whatever, But that's the one everyone listens to on Spotify. Is that
Sure.
one, right?
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
no, don't listen to
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
So then the next version I released was off of Snap, Crackle, and Pop with
Yep.
Bobby Rock.
I love that
and
record.
the Buddha.
I love that record.
And with those guys, I stepped it up. So then the middle section, it turned into an arpeggio section.
Yeah.
And so now that stuck. And then I did other versions and live records, and I always try to change it. And I don't change a tune, but I change the interpretation so it keeps growing a little bit.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. It keeps it fresh, and it probably keeps you excited to play it. Because if you're playing it note for note every night
Oh my God,
for however many years, when
Yeah.
did Sing come out? Like
96.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you were playing it all that time, the same every night, you would be like, "Oh man, I hate this." I
Yeah,
don't
but
wanna
some
do this."
people online in Asia, they get really defensive about
because
it.
they know it so well.
They know, and they know the
they've
one
studied it.
version.
Yeah.
They know the Sing version.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he changed it. I can't.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Yeah.
But it has to evolve.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that Snap Crackle Pop record. I have told you that so many times. I love the guitar tone of that, just the attack of it, the song choice. Oh, it's amazing.
That's a Wizard modern classic. I think people thought it was a 5150, but it wasn't.
Really?
It was
okay.
Because we recorded that on the PV tour.
Yep,
We
okay.
did the clinic in the day, and then we would record, or in the evening we would record it, but then we'd do club dates at night, and we recorded that as well. So I did kind of dual duty. Like,
Oh, yeah.
So like I had a 5150 for the clinic,
Okay.
which I like.
Yeah.
But this Wizard modern classic that I had back in the day, I still have it, by the way. It sounded so good.
Yeah, I mean that
Oh.
just the tone of that record is so fresh still
Yeah.
to this day,
Oh,
and
cool.
the
Thank you,
playing
man.
is so good.
Yeah.
And the Walk This Way cover, I love it.
That's a Bobby Rock thing.
I love
yeah.
it. Actually, when we were talking about what we should jam on, I had suggested that
You did.
as a throwback
You did, yeah.
to that record. I also love the Staring at the Sun
Thank
record.
you.
That's another one, start to finish, that I
Steve
just,
Smith, Ross Valerie on that.
Yeah, I mean it's just such the songwriting's really great. The guitar tone is great. The production is great. Just really, really great record.
Thank you. Like, I see different eras for me. So, the first was Two Hands, One Heart, and then we had Thrills and Chills, and then we had Sing. Cool, But to me, the dividing line is Staring at the Sun. Like
Okay.
from that album on, then it's the songwriting went to here, because that was the focus. Before
Yeah.
it might have been the guitar playing, But
Sure, it was
then
a different time too, and part of being an instrumental guitarist at that point in time, we talked about this,
Yeah.
is the flash, the excitement, the tricks,
Right.
like, and then all of a sudden it morphed into songwriting
Right.
and production
Yeah.
and kind of overall tone and everything.
And to your point about Snap, I'm not saying it's not a great record or whatever, but it's so weird to hear that record for me now, because it's nothing like I play now. Like I'm a more refined player, which a lot of people may hate, but I listen to that. I'm like, man, that's a young man, like that's a young man's game.
Yeah,
right?
loads of distortion, like real aggressive, a lot of harmonics,
right.
like just.
And the Buddha was insane. Bill Dickens. Oh
yeah,
man, he was
yeah.
amazing. Or is amazing.
There's points in time where you hear like little harmonics or little licks, and you're like, is that the guitar? Is that the bass? It's just like.
Yeah, but it's funny. So Bill Dickens played on that record. It was Bobby, Bill, and me on Snap. But so for Vermeer, I had Bill come in and play on 3-4 tunes on Vermeer, but they're the real pretty tunes, because he has a nice feel for everything. So it's so funny. He's known for that crazy stuff, but I know what he does really well.
Yeah, he can do
that.
the soulful kind of play for the song kind of thing.
It's awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Of course,
and
my
thank
pleasure.
you for playing here today and hanging out. And for taking the time for the podcast interview. Is there anything that you'd like to say to our customer base and our fan base before we sign off?
Just keep supporting local music stores.
Thank you.
Listen, I can shop anywhere, right? Where do I buy my stuff?
Thank you. We appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
So you always take care of me. Great staff. I love the store. I was telling you at lunch, it's like, I love the store because you turn a corner like, oh, what's that? There's something, it's a discovery when you're in here, and I love that.
Yeah.
It's
well, thank you
old
very
school.
much. Yeah.
Good job, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers.